Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this time we are talking about the very first trailer for The Legend of Zelda, Echoes of Wisdom. There's a lot to see from this first trailer. We now know that this is a brand new 2D Zelda game that's coming out this year. It's very exciting, but with this trailer we have new gameplay and story details that I really want to get into analyzing and dissecting here, so that's what we're doing today. But before going forward, let me ask that if you do enjoy my content, to please subscribe and hit that notification bell. So starting right from the beginning, we see what appears to be someone in a hood, looks like Link, exploring this underground dungeon-like area, fighting some dark nuts here. He does his trademark spin attack, and it's something interesting here. We can see the sword, it has like these green swirls, as does his hood. And so, just seeing that right off the bat, I'm already kind of thinking, like, why is he donning this interesting hood with the green swirls? Why does he have this sword? Is there something about it that's unique? I think so, but I'll speak more on it in a moment. Here we see Zelda. She's encased in this purple jewel, very much like how she was in Ocarina of Time and others. And even the design reminds me of a lot of A Link Between Worlds and Ocarina of Time, but in a more chibi way. At first, I thought this was Puppet Ganon, but I'm now thinking this is definitely Ganon. There, it's very clearly Link. He has his Hylian shield, and he's going to take off the hood. And what we see here is clearly the same design of Link from The Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening. And so what we're going to see from this overall game, it's using the same aesthetic, it's using the same visual engine, it looks like. And this is very rare for us to see a new Zelda game to use the same art style when it's not a direct sequel. So it actually leads me to believe that this is in some ways kind of like a direct sequel. So when we go back to Link's Awakening, that's a follow-up to Link after an adventure where he saved Princess Zelda in Hyrule from Ganon, and then moves on to another adventure that takes place in Link's Awakening, but then afterwards he's heading back to Hyrule. And so, what I'm seeing here is an experienced Link who can take on various enemies like Dark Nuts and even Ganon. And so I'm basically thinking that this is the same Link from Link's Awakening. It's a follow-up. This is essentially a sequel, which I actually think makes a lot of sense because when we take a look at the apparent codename leaks, Link's Awakening had the codename of Richard, and the supposed codename for this project is Edward. And if you're unfamiliar with the story or the historical tale of the Princes of the Tower, they were Edward and Richard, these two princes that went missing after a certain amount of time. And so there needed to be a connection there. I was thinking maybe it could be a new 2D Zelda, but there was always a possibility that maybe it was somehow a reference to a remake. It's the same way Link's Awakening was a remake, but rather, it looks like it's a game that's directly related, but a new title. Continuing on. See Link duking it out with Ganon, he's teleporting, doing the whole fireball, tennis ball thing. Link does a jumping spin attack, which I think is really cool. So we're seeing some new moves from Link here, and it just really gets me thinking, like, what's going on with Link? But we'll talk more about that a little bit later on here. Ganon is holding this kind of like double trident-like thing. It's a very interesting weapon he has here. But he's collapsing, he poofs away, actually, which is unusual for Ganon himself, unless there's something else amuck here. He does leave his weapon behind, which I find to be quite curious. You'll notice that the weapon starts emanating this purple, like, smoke, and now this crack erupts and Link is falling into it. Before he falls completely into it, he takes out his new bow and shoots at the jewel to crack the jewel to free Zelda. So Link even has this new bow, he has this new sword, he has this interesting hood, and he's so experienced. I really think that this is a Link that has found new abilities throughout his adventure, and it does get me thinking that there may be some sort of reference to some sort of civilization that this weaponry is from, because it's all following a similar theme. We see the green swirls on the sword, the bow, the hood, and it definitely evokes something like the Twilight or the Zonai. And something interesting about the Zonai is that before we saw the depictions of the Zonai and Tears of the Kingdom, we were led to believe that they were a warrior clan. And so we see this bow, this sword, with the green swirl. I'm wondering if there's somewhat of a connection there. But let's see what happens with Zelda. Link falls into the darkness. This other realm, it looks like. And Zelda needs to escape. And then she escapes, Link is trapped, and it's at this point it becomes very evident that Link is not the main character of this game. It is Princess Zelda. But we also see a really nice perspective of this version of Hyrule with this style from Link's Awakening. Wow. It's cool stuff here. So, several things I want to point out. This could be maybe a water dungeon right here in this lake. Notice we have this interesting like rock structure. We'll speak more on that in a moment or later into the trailer. We have a look at Hyrule Castle. There's looks like maybe a dungeon over there as well. Like you can see almost like bird-like statues. So I think this is likely some sort of bird or wind temple kind of like dungeon potentially. Here we see a town leading up to the castle. It looks beautiful. So, several things here. Just seeing a more expanded shot. One, this is definitely kind of like a Breath of the Wild-like moment as Zelda stares off into the distance from a higher point of view. Very cool stuff. You'll also notice that there is a little, like, indent on this wall here. It looks like you could blow it up with a bomb, as you can in typical Zelda games. And there even looks to be another dungeon over here leading up to what looks like, very obviously, Death Mountain. But actually, something else we should probably talk about is literally the title of the game, The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. There's some sort of staff here, which we'll get into more detail in a bit, but it's a very interesting title. Wisdom is an important motif throughout the Zelda series. It usually has to do with Zelda. She's usually the bearer of the Triforce of Wisdom, and she's a character that evokes wisdom. So a game that is starring Princess Zelda having the title with wisdom in it makes a lot of sense, actually. Mr.
Hello,
Aonuma.
everyone. I'm Eiji Aonuma, producer of the Legend of Zelda series.
Something kind of neat here after his bow. You'll notice that he's wearing this cool shirt, and it looks like the shirt has a focus on the Triforce. You see power here. I bet wisdom and courage are to the sides. They're kind of covered up, but this is clearly a reference to older Zelda games like A Link to the Past. But I think this is kind of like a subtle reference to, hey, this game is gonna play a role in the story of the Triforce, power, courage, and wisdom. Hence the title, Echoes of Wisdom, for this new Zelda game.
What you just saw was the latest installment, The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. This time around,
Uh-oh. Looks like the knights have found Princess Zelda here. What's going on?
Link has vanished. Now it's up to Princess Zelda.
Oh, they're bowing. Okay, so this looks fine. Nothing too insidious here. They're just finding her, which is important. She is the princess after all.
Zelda to step into the protagonist role. You might be thinking, will Zelda fight with a sword then?
Nope.
Here, we wanted to create a new gameplay style that breaks conventions seen in past Legend of Zelda games with a top-down perspective. To explain more, please take a look at this video.
Alright, time for the breakdown of the gameplay.
Stolen away. Across the vast lands of Hyrule, strange rifts have appeared.
Alright, so something I'll point out here. You'll see some water huts. This one looks to have like a bag. This is very clearly some kind of shop. I kind of think it's for a Zora village because there are multiple Zoras in this game, but that's another thing we'll speak on a little bit later into this video.
And have taken many people.
People are getting taken away, like Link.
Including Link.
This is
Now
likely
alone,
the beginning
Zelda meets
segments of the
fairy
game.
Tri.
So this character is very interesting. Mystery Fairy Tri. Notice how we talked about earlier how this game seems to be placing a prevalence on the story of the Triforce, and here we have this mysterious fairy by the name of Tri, who has these three little triangles following it like some sort of weird magical tail thing. Interesting stuff there.
Receives a mysterious staff called the Tri-Rod, and
Actually, yeah, so this is the Tri-Rod. That appears to be the main tool of the game. It's in literally the cover art, the title of the game for sure. But Zelda's also in a dungeon. Why would Princess Zelda be in a dungeon, especially after we see the knights come and rescue her and bow to her? So there's some interesting developments going on here that are odd, to say the least.
sets off on a journey across Hyrule to save.
And now notice something else. Now Zelda's wearing a hood, she's not wearing her royal garments. And I think this is a little odd. I think there's something going on here. Why would she be hiding her appearance? It could be because, well, she's the princess and she wants to leave the castle, and it could be as simple as that. Maybe she was put into jail because she wants to go and save Link, but the king will not allow her, and so they tried to trap her in. And so she's hiding her appearance so she can go around trying to help Hyrule and save Link. And the knights, if they see her true appearance, will bring her back, and if need be, will trap her in a jail cell because she's not going to stop. I think that kind of makes sense because we do see the knights kneeling, so it's not like the knights are trying to trap her for evil reasons necessarily. This kind of makes sense to me, but I will also entertain the possibility that maybe there is some sort of evil thing going on within Hyrule itself. Perhaps the king is possessed in some way, wouldn't be the first time, and the king is directing the knights to trap in Zelda. One or the other. I kind of like the first explanation because we saw the knights bow to Zelda in a very courteous, respectful way, but we shall see.
Save her kingdom. By waving the Tri-Rod at a table she found, Zelda learned how to create an imitation of it called an echo.
So, something
Once you learn an echo,
I want to point out here. There's several things. So, one, the game's using the same UI as Link's Awakening, which is very cool. It just kind of builds on this idea that it's following the same sort of lineage there. But also, this character has a varying amount of triangles for the tail. In the beginning, it's 3. Here we see 4. There's 3 here, but the first one of the 4 is flying out as she's using the echo
of
to
something
create a table, or yeah, it's a table. And then you'll see that 4th triangle actually hovering above the table. And so what I think is going on here is that the more triangles you have, the more access you have to creating different echoes, copies of different items you find throughout the world. And it even tells you the cost of that here. So here you'll see 1, but later on we'll see higher numbers for different items. Something else I think is worth noting is that here to the left we see like the D-pad buttons, directional buttons, and to the right it's the tri-staff or the tri-rod. But it makes me wonder, what are the other options for? Now the tri-rod is clearly the most important tool of the game, but it seems like there may be some others. So I'm very curious on what that may be. I'm not sure we have much information on that quite yet.
You can recreate it whenever you'd like. Even if there's a wall blocking your path, you can create echoes of tables to get a leg up.
So I love what's going on here. So what we're seeing is that you have this ability that has a great deal of applications. So it's very much like Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, in the sense that you're given this ability early on into the game that allows you to do a great many of different things throughout the world that's dependent upon your own critical thinking and imagination. Another cool thing I'll note here, we can see more evidence that when you use one of the triangles, it appears above the item. So we see a triangle here, we see a triangle here, and because there's a 3rd table here, this thing had 4, there's only 1 triangle left. That's pretty much the system. It makes a lot of sense.
Just like that. You can
So alright, this is cool stuff. So notice the mini-map here, there's like this glowing little symbol, and here we see this structure again. What is this? So it looks kind of like the hive-like thing we saw in Pikmin 4. It might be a reference, it probably isn't. But I do think it's something important because it is glowing, it's showing on the mini-map here. We do see one outside of a dungeon and it's not lit. So my first thought is that maybe this is like a fast travel point. I think that could be a pretty good possibility here, but they need to be activated. So if they're not activated, you can't use them. This one is active. That's my thinking, at least.
You can create wooden boxes.
Cute kitty here. I just want to point out the cute kitty, but also just like the overall look of the game is beautiful. Even when like you zoom in like this, you can see some pretty good detail. Love it. Also, here's another one of those rocks. So this is a town, so conceivably you can fast travel to this town here.
Old beds, and unusual things like...
Oh, so this is cool stuff. We're seeing just the wide variety of things that you can copy and create echoes for, but also this looks to be in that world in the Rift world, this void. So it almost looks like there's going to be challenges within here. Maybe every time you see one of those cracks in the world, you go into it, you clear it, kind of like a shrine or a mini dungeon, and it evaporates. It then clears up, and that part of the world is restored, and you can see whatever is going on there. Or perhaps save who's ever been trapped in there.
Water blocks. How you use them separately or together is entirely up to you.
A lot of application here.
Learn and create echoes of things you find while exploring Hyrule.
So that's a cool part. They're sort of showing like the same kind of wheel we saw in Breath and Tears of the Kingdom. Again, it really just feels like those philosophies they use for those games are now going into 2D Zelda as well, which is really cool. And I would even argue that we go back to the last new 2D Zelda game, A Link Between Worlds, when they started to break the conventions of Zelda and had dungeons out of order. That was a lead into Breath of the Wild. So there is an overall direction of the Zelda team here where they are focusing on breaking conventions, still finding ways to make the games feel like Zelda, but also doing a lot of new things. And here we see this really cool ability with the echoes.
You might be surprised at what you discover.
That's just hilarious. You can just stack beds upon beds to build like a staircase and then a trampoline. So that right there was the Gerudo area. We saw a Gerudo there. Cool stuff. Here we see what looks to be a Moblin. I like just kind of how, again, we just continue to see these up-close perspectives. Like, it's even though it's a top-down gameplay, they continue to find opportunities to show the game up close because the visuals look pretty awesome.
Even battles will look different. You could pick up and throw a rock echo, for example.
That's awesome.
That's not all, though. You can also
So here, whenever you defeat an enemy apparently for the first time, you can then choose to learn it, and then that's an option to summon them later on.
Echoes of monsters. After doing so...
So notice here, right, we have 4 triangles, right? But here, you'll see that it's not just the one triangle like before, but 2. So the Moblins have a cost of 2, so she should only be able to summon 2 of them.
They'll fight by your
there,
side.
You see, she only has 2 triangles now. She summoned 1 Moblin, and the 2 triangles are hovering above this guy here. Looks like his color changed a little bit. And there again, there's all the triangles are gone from this little character here, Tri, and the other triangles are hovering above this one. So that's the mechanic.
Monsters have different abilities, so
here we're on the blade trap running it. So there's just so many different things we can do here.
choose the one you want to create based on the situation.
We're underwater. She has a meter, looks like, so she does have to hold her breath. She can't be in here for very long. Looks like we see the weird sort of like bomb fish from Twilight Princess, except they're alive, which is kind of funny.
Situation. Wisdom is key after all.
Oh, this is awesome. So she's baiting the crows with the meat and is now going to summon some sort of Baba creature to annihilate them. Love it. Escape sequence here. That's really cool. So there's going to be multiple moments where different things are happening that may be unexpected. This looks to be the Pharaon region. So this is actually a really interesting scene here. So it's almost like what we're seeing when we look at the Gerudo area, now this area. We're seeing the game kind of realize from the perspective of Breath of the Wild and Tears, if that makes any sense. So in Pharaon, in Breath of the Wild and Tears, it's evoking more of a tropical-like environment. And so you look at these trees, you see these tropical trees, you even see a parrot from tropical environments. So Hyrule now has Pharaon, which is a forest area, but a tropical forest area, which isn't necessarily the same area as maybe like where we would find the Deku tree. So there could be a few different forests here. And so we're just seeing a little bit of that Breath of the Wild Tears heritage here. This is interesting. So it looks like a wind-up Octorok. I'm very curious on this one. Is this another Echo, or is this something else? Could this be one of the other abilities you see on the D-pad? I'm not so sure. Actually, I think it might be. Because what you'll notice here, there's no triangles hovering above this character, and Zelda's controlling it. We see the 4 triangles here. Like, if there is a triangle hovering above this thing, then I would think, okay, maybe it's another one of the Echoes, but I think this is something else. And actually, going back to the whole Breath of the Wild thing, we see multiple moblins here, right? But there is a chest right here with the moblin sign, very much like in Breath of the Wild and Tears. So again, that heritage is there. We beat these enemies, we unlock the chest right in the overworld. Very interesting stuff to see here. We get to soar. Notice how this time, yes, Zelda is using another character to manipulate or work around with the environment, but this one has a triangle hovering above it. So that wind-up Octorok, I really do think is a different thing from the typical Echo we see throughout this game. This is an interesting environment. We see Zelda with Tri. There looks to be a research assistant, a researcher here. I believe he's Sheikah with the white hair. We even see kind of like the hat that seems to be kind of like the Sheikah ninja-like hat kind of thing. But there's some other interesting things going on here. They're cooking some cool stuff. It seems to be kind of a cozy environment, but there's this thing in the back here. It looks like it's meant for heating things. He's got like a little hammer. It looks like he could be someone who can be a bit of a smith. But there's also this door here. Is there something that leads to underground, potentially? Maybe. So there might be more to this environment than what we can see so far. Here we see another Sheikah, looks like. And what's really crazy about this one, this is an old lady, but has the white hair and is doing some really cool ninja moves. I wonder if this is Impa herself. I think there's a strong possibility of that. But she's fighting Hylian Knights. Why is that exactly? I think this goes back to the thinking that they don't want Zelda out here exploring Hyrule for whatever reason. Either A, because there's some sort of possession to the king and that he's telling them to trap Zelda, or they just don't want Zelda out there risking her life. So it could be one or the other. But it's interesting to see how Zelda's just here watching what I'm assuming is Impa protecting her from the knights here. Also notice the goddess statue. Again, more of that breath, tears, skyward sword heritage there.
In a Hyrule without Link?
Ooh, this is another cool scene. So we see 2 different Zoras, kind of like in the Oracle game where there was 2 different Zoras. We have the River Zora, we have the Sea Zora. These both seem to be royalty from the 2 different factions, and then they have their attendants here as well. This could be an interesting development here because Princess Zelda is a princess who might have some understanding of royalty and politics, so that could play a role a little bit here with the story and perhaps some side questing or even just main questing we can do throughout the game and interacting with the different characters. Ooh, another cool thing. Again, they show another really cool up-close perspective of the world. It looks beautiful. So they're really playing with that, but also we see this business sprout here. I remember this guy from Majora's Mask. It looked really cool. And we see him here. He's selling stuff, looks like. We got the different potions and different menu options here.
Fate of the Kingdom.
This is the Deku Tree. Though what's really interesting about this Deku Tree is that it has this appearance. It's very much like the appearance we saw from Ocarina of Time. It has a very similar design, that same style of face. And what's very curious is this game is releasing in September, and we do have the recently announced Deku Tree Lego set that has both the Breath of the Wild style and the Ocarina of Time style. And here we see a Deku Tree that's more so of the Ocarina of Time design. Very cool stuff, but also we see a Triforce here. What's going on? Was a Master Sword here at one point? Could be.
Now in Zelda's hands.
Okay. Couple things here that are going on. A lot of quick scenes that are playing around. So here we see some sort of big aquatic creature pursuing or traveling alongside Princess Zelda. I'm trying to... Oh, look, there's the eyes right there. It's almost like maybe like a giant frog, potentially, but it has like weird things on top. This could be the return of a frog mini-boss, maybe. I'm trying to see how long it is. It looks like it Does it end there? Yeah, it looks like it ends. So it's big, but it's not like extremely big. Anyways, this next thing here looks like we're in another dungeon. But what you'll notice here, this design looks a lot like the design that was behind Princess Zelda in the beginning of the trailer. But she looks like she's fighting some sort of golem boss. Cool stuff there. There's even some purple little embers or sparks, maybe kind of like what we see from the Rift world. So there could be some of that evil magic playing around here. So it could be that this magic that was used to create the rifts may also be used to summon this boss, perhaps having to do with the final evil enemy of the game. Presumably Ganon, but perhaps someone else? Maybe.
How was that?
Pretty good.
I hope you enjoyed this demonstration of the
I
Echo
did.
ability, which channels Princess Zelda's wisdom. There are a lot of
You can copy signs. There's so much you can
echoes in
copy
this game.
here. As
To
he
be
says.
honest, I haven't counted them all yet.
That was a Lizalfos,
How you solve
spiders.
Puzzles and battle
Water
enemies
dungeon of some
will change
kind.
depending on the echoes you
There is a little seed hat thing. It requires at least 3 triangles, it looks like, but yeah, I mean, it's cool. I think we could hover around from such high elevation. Again, playing around with the perspective of this game here. There is more verticality that's being demonstrated here, which I really appreciate. They're playing around with the visuals of this game, taking advantage of the hardware, and I love it.
used.
So this part's really cool. We are seeing another enemy that I'm not familiar with, some sort of candle enemy, cute little eyes here, requires 2 triangles, but we're seeing it burn grass.
In short, we've
Which is
created
fun.
a game
But I'm kind of just getting the vibes of what we saw with that sort of prototype of Breath of the Wild that was showcasing some of the physics and mechanics, but in a 2D space. And I kind of just think that this game is sort of like what that became. Taking certain mechanics that have varied applications and applying it to the 2D world. And we're seeing that here with this game, which is just enabling so many different gameplay scenarios, which will facilitate people having very different gameplay experiences, as Mr. Anuma is talking about here.
where each player's experience will be different.
3 Dead looks
The
awesome.
Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom launches September 26th.
Man, awesome cover art here, or key art. So we can see Death Mountain. We can see this cool little town over here. There's a chest in the ground, something we saw from Breath and Tears. You probably will find a way to yank it out. We see another one of those rocks with the glowing lights. I kind of think it's something used for fast traveling. We shall see. The return of heart pieces. So people who have missed the heart pieces, looks like those are coming back. So some really cool stuff here. There's a little bit more we can maybe dissect by seeing both Link and Ganon here. Link has kind of like an angry look. He's kind of has like this purple outline alongside Ganon as well. So I'm very curious on what's going on with this. Ganon, obviously, you know, he looks to be kind of evil, but he has red eyes without pupils, so maybe he is possessed as well here. So I do kind of think that maybe there is like another evil thing at hand, perhaps an evil wizard. I kind of feel something like that could be going on, especially when you consider that Princess Zelda has her own staff or rod, very mage-like, so there may end up being kind of like a battle of spellcasters here. Princess Zelda versus, who knows, maybe the return of Vati or another enemy. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, but I think also, yeah, there might be something going on with Link here in this Rift world. So I do think that we haven't seen the last of Link. Link is very important. He has a new sword and bow and this cool hood and new abilities. It seems kind of weird to not showcase that again. So my speculation is that we will run into him at least a couple times. We may have to fight him, actually, which would be interesting. But also, if we defeat him, perhaps we can use Link himself as an echo. That would be very interesting, making Link somewhat playable in the future. I think they need to do more with him in this game. And that's kind of what I believe will happen. We will eventually have to duke it out with this evil or possessed version of Link. And there will be an echo where we can then use him, but this will likely be a late game echo, because he's probably going to be extremely powerful and require a lot of triangles. And perhaps by the final fight of the game, where it's Spellcaster versus Spellcaster or Zelda versus Ganon, she will be able to summon the real Link at the end, and they will fight together to defeat the ultimate evil. That's my theory. I think it makes sense, but what do you guys think? Anyways, that is it, everyone. That is my initial trailer analysis for The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Is there anything in the trailer that you noticed that I didn't? Please point it out in the comments below. I'd really appreciate it. But there's just so much to talk about, so much to be excited about. I can't wait. I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.